Hello, Booktube. It's Al back again for Al's reading and writing. No arithmetic here. Um, Figured I would come and talk about Mammoth #2. If you're wondering why I'm in the same clothes and seem to be parked in front of the same place, it's because I'm filming these back to back. My daughter's off at orchestra practice, so I have a few hours and there's enough light right now to be able to record some videos. So hopefully you don't take offense to thinking I don't have enough shirts to go around or something. I don't know. So this month, today we're at the 25th. When I wound up taking up the challenge, originally I thought I would do one Mammoth. Thing was, and I explained this in a previous video, I was already in the midst of a Bible in 30 days plan and a challenge that I had taken up to see if I could get that done. And I was just about the halfway point. I think the plan that day, or the first day of March, was supposed to be Song of Solomon and Isaiah. I had already read through Song of Solomon the day prior. Restarting for the 1st of March didn't make much sense, plus it would have automatically failed that challenge that I was in to begin with. So I decided that I would read from Isaiah, go through Isaiah, the rest of the prophets, and all the way through Revelation, then pick it up again and do another 30 days. And that 30 days would finish well within the time frame for March, because I finished the plan a few days ahead on as I got to Revelation. So finish Revelation, pick back up with Genesis the next day, and then move through it. Now I'm at a place, fell a little bit behind just in the last day or two. For me, this plan gets a little bit rough when the hardest point in it is First Chronicles in the Old Testament. If you're familiar with that book, it's one that has just page after page, chapter after chapter of genealogy. And if you're going through like a Bible in a year plan, reading 1 or 2 pages of that a day seems tedious. But when your whole thing, that this plan, usually you're reading between 30 and 40 chapters a day. And about the first half of First Chronicles is all genealogy. So you're here, Adam begat Seth, and Seth begat, so-and-so. And as you move on and on, you can only take so much of that. So the first time I went through also, I fell a little bit behind there. I just had to divide the days in half. And I wound up catching up later on, and like I said, got a little bit ahead with it. So I knew coming in here I had a few days of breathing room. I think I was scheduled to finish on the 27th, and now I'll finish on the 28th. Because I'm also trying to make my way through a third Mammoth. I don't think I'll try to get ahead before the end of the month, ahead of where I'm at. But from this point on out, I shouldn't fall any further behind. But I thought I'd take a little bit of time to talk about what it's like to read the Bible through in a month, what would lead me to do that, if there's any benefit to it. As I mentioned in a previous video, I'm Christian, so reading the Bible, I'm not reading it just coming to it as if I'm reading through it for literary merit, although certainly there is literary merit in the Bible, and I do take into account the various types of literature as I'm reading through the Bible. But at the same time, I'm a person, I read the Bible every day. It's scripture, it's God's word that he's revealed to us. So while it's not a legalistic thing, and that it's something that I must do every day, I also view, just from a personal standpoint, I can't go more than a few weeks without eating, maybe. I can't go more than a couple days without drinking water. If you've ever tried to do a fast without food and water, it's absolutely miserable. And then you can't go more than minutes without air, or you're dying. And so if we're looking at the Word of God, I want to be in there consistently. One frustration I've always had with the Bible, and just studying and getting into it daily, trying to figure out where to be. Depending on the plan, and I like to read in big chunks. read at a pretty rapid pace, although there are times also to get in and really study a certain passage and look at look at the etymology of the words and the grammar patterns and such. And that's something that I do also. But for daily reading, I'd like to be seeing a lot. The problem is, even if you're reading 10 chapters a day, it's going to take a number of months to get through. And so looking at that, you can wind up 10 chapters a day. You spend a week in Genesis. You spend nearly another week in Exodus. And then, from there you're moving through. So you could easily spend a couple of months in just the first 5 books of the Bible. And that's not a problem. Those are great books. But then you're missing the rest. And so at times through my life, I varied from going through and doing full Bible read-throughs, maybe just doing New Testament read-throughs or going and looking at a book. But wherever I'm at, I seem to be missing out elsewhere. I've solved that at times. There's a plan that Professor Scott Horner made called the Horner Reading Plan, where he takes a book from each of the different sections of the Bible. So a book from the Torah or the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. You're reading a chapter from there. You're reading a chapter from the Gospels. You're reading a chapter from you're reading 2 chapters of the epistles. He divides them, the Pauline epistles, and then the Pauline pastoral ones he groups with the epistles from Peter and John and James and the letter to Hebrews and Revelation. I think he's got all those together. You're reading from the prophets. I think he's got lumped all together. The histories. You're always reading a psalm every day. You're always reading the Proverbs every day, Acts every day. I don't know if I've gotten to all 10, but you get the picture. You're seeing a little bit of everywhere. Even with that, though, now it takes about 2 months to get through Genesis, since you don't really see the context of it. And so a few years back, I signed up for a Bible in 90 Days plan. That one, I think the reading was maybe about 10 to 15 chapters a day. But reading it through in 90 days was really neat because you get a chance to move through pretty quick. At the same time, even with that plan, it felt like, you'd spend about 2 months, maybe a little bit more than 2 months in the Old Testament, get to the New Testament, fly through it really quickly, and I don't remember the exact breakdown, but you would fly through it really quickly. And if I did that plan a few times in a row, and while it was profitable, it always felt like I was flying through the New Testament and back into the Old Testament. Recently, I tried doing a whole Bible in 60 days, and the pacing of that was much better. I think usually about 25 to 30 chapters a day, most of the time. If you wind up getting into the Psalms or something, you wind up reading a whole lot more. But obviously most of them, other than Psalm 119, are a lot shorter than most other chapters of the Bible. Then I saw the 30-day plan. The first time after I finished the 60-day, somebody had created this 30-day plan. Wasn't certain if I could do it. Obviously, I've read bigger books in that kind of time frame, or at least books that are as large. But I thought it would be a good challenge to do. Sitting and reading through while trying to keep attention and trying to interact with what you're reading and to process it and look things up. Every time I read through the Bible, wind up seeing things, and sometimes things stick out, and I'd wind up going and searching them out just to see what's going on there. But so the big thing I wanted to talk about, and I've been rambling and taking a while to get here, is what's the benefit to reading the Bible through like that? I really think it helps see the divine author's hand. And what I mean by that is you see the motifs, the themes, the things that are built up from the very beginning in Genesis. In Genesis 3, after the fall, after Adam and Eve's sin, you see God's promise to them that he'll send the seed of the woman that'll crush the head of the serpent, even though the serpent will bruise his heel. And that seed promise traces through Genesis. You could see the promise reiterated in the covenant with Noah. You could see the promise that God will dwell in the tents of Shem. And so we see that this Messiah will be divine. And if so you look through the Old Testament, you'd see this longing and this looking for the Messiah as you come through, in the times of the judges, as each one of these men have qualities of the Messiah but fall short in some way or another. But you see the seed promise passed down from Shem and then to Abraham as God makes his covenant with him. That then passed down to Judah, saying that this Messiah, that this ruler will come through Judah's line. And you wind up seeing it picked up again with David. There's some interesting reasons for the big gap there. Deuteronomy says that no one born of a forbidden union will enter the assembly of the Lord. And if you remember, Judah had gone off and slept with a prostitute. It turned out to be his daughter-in-law, who he hadn't married off to his youngest son, as was done customarily there. And so you had a child born of a forbidden union. If you go look at the genealogies, both in, you can see it in First Chronicles, but you could also see it in Luke. You can see how 10 generations later, all of a sudden, David is anointed king. He's the first king in the line of Judah. Then all of a sudden, that seed promise pops back up, where David is told that one of his offspring will rule forever. And we see that promise handed down, but it's actually cut off at Solomon. But because Solomon had sinned, we're told that Messiah won't come through his line. And so once again, looking at Luke, you wind up seeing that Christ's line came through Nathan. So fascinating stuff. And you see that seed promise pop up again in Isaiah. And Isaiah talks about the holy seed that'll be left after Israel and Judah are taken into exile. And then you see this promise of the seed that winds up sprouting. It has a runner that comes from this trunk, and it winds up sprouting. And so you have a branch that comes out of dry ground, and it talks about that being Jesse, and then the father of David. Then you see this righteous one that's going to come. One of the nicknames for the Messiah is the branch. And so you see this, and then that's picked up again in the New Testament with Christ being the vine. And so that theme follows all through the Bible, and getting a chance to see it and to make these connections when reading quickly. I don't think I would necessarily see that stuff as clearly if I were taking a year to go through it. So going through very quick and draw attention to those things. Now, obviously, the disadvantage of going through so quick is if you're reading 40 to 50 chapters a day, there's a lot that, you can run into eye glaze problems where you're just not processing. You read through a few pages and don't remember what you read the last few pages, or you just don't get your attention catching niche details as you're trying to speed through. So there are benefits and disadvantages. It's definitely something I've enjoyed, and I've enjoyed coming through it a second time. I wasn't certain but before the March of the Mammoth challenge if it was something that I would do again, or at least again right away. But marching mammoths, the readathon led me into saying, hey, why not? I'm already doing it for half of the month. I might as well go through and do the plan one more time, add one more book to the list. So I did that, and then like I said, I've enjoyed it. It's something I would recommend, even if you aren't somebody that is a believer. Reading through in that quick a method. I talk to a lot of people who aren't believers all over the place, and sadly a lot of people who are believers that really have a ignorance of the Bible. And I'm somebody that's a firm believer that if we're going to object to what somebody believes, we want to know what they actually believe and not paint it with the wrong brush. But raise real objections when looking at things. And so I'd highly recommend taking a look through. At the very least, look at it as literature, but come through it and read through and seeing those themes and how they're echoed. And reading it at a fast pace, like I said, is something that draws a lot of attention to that, because you go through just really, really quickly. So, once again, I would highly recommend it. At any rate, that's all I've got for now. I think I'm going to cut this video here. I'll be back again soon. Probably again in a few minutes, although I won't upload the video for a few days. But I've got some other stuff coming up for you. I'm in the middle of my third Mammoth. Actually, I'm still about a quarter of the way through. That one's going to be a challenge to finish, to see if I can get the third one. That's Paul Auster's 4321. It's been an enjoyable read so far. Probably wait to give a discussion on that. I might give an update later on in the week, but I might be too busy trying to sprint my way through it. I've also got a book haul coming up for you, and some other things, so stay tuned. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share with others, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you soon. Thank you, Booktube. Bye.